I would love to invite David on stage from Resolution Games, who have built some amazing MR games. If you haven't tried them already, here's a video to see some of their titles. Have you guys tried any of these titles before? Some notes? Excellent. Welcome, David.
Hi, everyone.
Great to have you here.
Nice to be here. Yeah, so my name is David Filipe. I'm a Portuguese game developer. I'm currently based in Stockholm, Sweden. And now I'm engineering manager for Resolution Games. Yeah.
Excellent. Do you want to walk us through your journey so far? How long you've been with Resolution? Have you built for any non-VR platforms? Just your personal experience?
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. So I started in XR like 7 years ago, and always worked with XR. Since university, I always had the appeal for it. Like I tried it in university, I think, the first time in a game jam, and ever since then, I've been super addicted to it. I think for me, it's like the being able to be inside the experience, like experience it firsthand. For me, is like very appealing. Yeah, I started in Lisbon on a company that we did XR apps for healthcare, education, bit military, and yeah, then I transitioned to Resolution Games in Sweden, where I relocated, and now I worked many years with Demio, and now I'm working on a new project, but still supporting it with Demio. Demio is still my baby.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of Resolution, I can speak a bit about it. So at Resolution Games, we're a company of 100 plus people. We have our headquarters in Stockholm, Sweden, but we also have offices in Linköping, slightly south of Stockholm, and Austin, Texas. We've been the developers of Angry Birds VR, Isle of Pigs, Cookout, Racket Club, Ultimax, Demio Battles, and a bunch of others. Sorry if I don't remember.
Do you have like a
everything.
little bit on the origin story? Like how'd you guys get started?
Yeah, Resolution Games started in January 2015, which means in January we're going to be 10 years old. And we started from the beginning with VR. Our first title was Solitary Jester, I think for Oculus Go. I don't remember exactly. It was a long time ago. And I also wasn't there in the beginning. Wow. But yeah, that's basically it.
So why did you get into MR then? Is it just the next logical step?
I think like for us, we love VR. The immersion that you have from VR is the best. But there's a lot of users that also don't feel comfortable basically being totally immersed. Like sometimes people don't have a lot of space in their offices or rooms where they play. So having MR is the natural step. You have like some safety of actually seeing your environment, and we can actually do a lot of cool things with the environment around you, which is something that we love to do.
Yeah, so it's like a situational awareness thing a little
Exactly, exactly. For us, that's very important. Also, most of our games, I would say like 99% of our games are all multiplayer, social games. So for us, that social aspect is also super important, which in VR you can do a lot of, and now we're experimenting with MR. Yeah.
Excellent. And I think you touched a little bit already on the appeal of MR for a studio that gets VR, but you want to go a little bit deeper? Like, what suggestions do you have for devs here that might have some experience with VR or not, and trying to figure out how to find the fun with mixed reality?
Yeah. So yeah, mixed reality for any of us developers that have been used to VR, mixed reality is again a natural progression from it. there's a lot of things you can do, like having access to the room around you, objects, and you can build super cool experiments with that. Like, I think like the first one that is like the most obvious sometimes when you start working with MR is portals. All of a sudden you can extend someone's room infinitely, have things happening all around you, and that brings another level of immersion. Yeah, it's basically
Excellent.
it. Yeah.
And I know in the audience we have a few developers, teams that are coming maybe from mobile, console, desktop. Any advice for them if they're thinking of getting into XR, building their first project? Is there
Yeah,
anything like that?
I've worked also with consoles and mobile, and to be perfectly honest, I think nowadays, maybe not 5, 7 years ago, but nowadays the transition is seamless, at least for me. I think we reached the point where if you have experience with consoles, it's completely translatable to XR. If you have experience with mobile, even better, like you're used to optimizing things. You used to care about draw calls and all of that. So it's a natural progression. I would think like nowadays, like with the documentation you have, with the samples you have, it's like super easy to enter it. Yeah.
Excellent.
What about like concept exploration? I heard a lot of ideas in there that like you must have had to really explore to find.
Yeah, I can tell a bit of a story like with Spatial Ops, one of our latest games. We have it in open beta since yesterday or something like that, and we're going to release it fully by the end of the year. So Spatial Ops is a co-located game. So again, multiplayer, co-location. We also have single-player campaign with portals, again. But the co-location part of it was what really inspired us. So in the beginning of Spatial Ops, I was working with a prototype. I only worked with it very briefly on the prototype stage. This is like a bit of a stupid story nowadays, but we started with Cube. When Quest released the pass-through, we started experimenting with it, and we noticed that you just spawn a Unity cube, and you leave it, and you can walk very far away, you come back, the cube is still there. And that sounds something super simple, but it was very transformative for us back then. So from there, we started working on our own solution for co-location. So we started using a very silly idea, which was we used the Quest box. So you would put your Quest on the box, you'd click a button, it would be synced, and then someone else would put it on the same box and click a button, it would be synced. So all of them would have that location as the initial one. And then we can do co-location experience. Obviously, from time you've been playing it, you would drift a bit, but it worked in the beginning. Nowadays, you have spatial anchors that make it almost seamless. We can all share one spatial anchor, we are all synced, and it makes like an experience that for us, in the beginning, was super hard to develop. Now it's very easy for you to get into it. So again, I feel like starting it now, it's very much better
But
than
you
before.
you had co-location before we did.
Yeah, but was it the best solution? It worked.
I have not heard of that one before, like a physical Quest box
Yeah.
as an anchor. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like it worked pretty well as long as you don't move the box.
Cool. What about performance? Like you mentioned that, you know, it's the same language as consoles and PC, but did you have to like spend another 80% of your development time like getting it to a 10x smaller budget?
Yeah, so in regards to performance, obviously, if you are used to working with mobile, you already have a lot of like knowledge about performance. But I think nowadays, again, it's much better. I think in terms of performance, like for us, the way we work with is you usually have the OVR metrics always on. Like it's super easy, it's just it's an APK you install on your Quests and you always have the metrics on. And we do that in all of our Quests and we use that throughout development because it helps you seeing like, okay, there's something here that I haven't noticed. Because sometimes you have frame drops and you're distracted, there's a lot of things happening, you don't understand them, but then you have something that alerts you. So that has been a great tool.
So you kind of sit with that active all the time, and if something crops up, do you like drop into another tool? Like, do you have like a decision tree? You're like, oh, if it's a GPU problem, I'm going to use Frame Debugger or what?
Yeah, exactly. So if it is, again, a GPU problem, we go to Frame Debugger. If it's like we usually have the profiler on as well, so we try to see what's happening and we profile very often. That's, again, one thing that we do might sound very obvious, but use the profiler in Unity often. It's fantastic to see a lot of things that might happen. So for example, in Demio, we were having some frame drops and we didn't really understand why. We do constant performance passes. And in one of those performance passes, we were really not understanding what was going on. We just analyzed it and we noticed on the profiler that we had like, I don't know, like 50 megabytes or something in memory, which was just our Asian fonts. And then the thing is, like, the game was not even, I didn't choose any Asian language to play, so we're having that issue with no reason. So currently we're actually working with Unity and Demio to have the addressables, because again, like those types of situations with addressables are easily fixed. We have that one. We also had one which is like you have cosmetics. We had all the cosmetics loaded in memory, which is like you don't really need that. But yeah, it's more or less that. Like I can give some tips. Like if you're starting a new project, I would recommend starting again with URP. URP has great support, for example, for true foveated rendering. If you're using a device that has eye tracking, like the Quest Pro, where it can actually like just foveate like what the person is not actually looking at.
Who knows what foveation is?
Fantastic.
Not
That's a great
everyone.
guidance here.
It's basically like higher resolution where you're seeing the most in the middle of the screen, and like towards the periphery, it starts dropping the resolution to save GPU.
Exactly. And with true foveated rendering, that center of the screen doesn't need to be the center, is exactly where you're looking at. So we can foveate everything else. You don't really notice it. But you get like huge performance gains with that. Yeah, URP. Another thing, this is not performance, but I really want to mention this because it's fantastic and I love it. It's the Aptic Designer, Meta Aptic Designer. I don't know if you use it. Please do. It's fantastic. For me, it's like a toy. Like now, our games are starting to have like haptics everywhere. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you can now have like a game designer do your haptics,
Yep.
where it's more of like an audio authoring workflow now, but it's like a parametric curve editor,
Yep.
and it's like just a hop away from being in the Unity editor, but then you can make your clips and then you can like put them in Unity and wire them up.
Yeah,
So
and-
you're preferring that workflow?
Yeah, I love that workflow, and especially because you can just like grab your audios, like for example, sound effects, and you just pass them through it, and with little to no like adjustment, you can bring them to Unity, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, fantastic haptics, especially on the Quest 3. It's very, very good. And also, you guys made it like, it was super good of you to also make it like it's agnostic. So you generate a clip that you can use in other platforms and all that, which is
Oh yeah, we used to have to like tailor your haptic effects for each of our devices because they have slightly different resonant frequencies and actuators and so forth, but that abstracts that for you.
yeah. And I think that's it. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit.
No, that's super interesting. Haptic Studio and the Haptics SDK. That's a good one. And that's a fun one, right?
Yeah, and also as you mentioned, the XR simulator. Right now, our pipeline is usually we play an editor with a link cable, and because we have multiplayer games, we do constant builds and we do constant play tests. Again, it's a bit hard when you need to test like 5 players or more.
Actually,
Yeah, but that's the part
we
that
just improved that.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to ask that because we're considering starting using the XR one, just for the fact that now you can actually import rooms. You can have again, rooms already set up for you, and you can actually. There's a lot of good features, but I wanted to ask in terms of multiplayer
Yeah.
and all of that. If you.
Yeah, so XR Simulator can, take the place of Link in the case where you don't want to put the headset on. You can also run 8 or 16 copies of it and test multiple instances of your game all in XR. They all are using OpenXR actively and whatever your multiplayer solution is, as well as our platform SDK, and they can all be talking to each other. And you can drop in on any of those instances with Link. So if you have 2 players doing a high five across a shard boundary and it causes an issue in your back end, and you need to go in there with Link and see that a palm tree was not loaded properly, causing that somehow, then you can do that. And you can switch between the different instances.
Yeah, it's way better than having 4 sim links of Unity running at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. And one of the takeaways from what I heard from you today is, try the samples, try the showcases. You never really know when inspiration and creativity, like where it will come from.
Exactly.
And for you, it came from the cube. Like, how should someone start like exploring MR?
Yeah, that's it. Like for me, like MR is a constant evolving thing, as we see today. It's like constantly getting improved. So I would, if you're starting a new project, just look at documentation, look at the Meta SDK. The Meta SDK always has like great samples for you to try on. Also, like you showed Dilmer. Dilmer has fantastic videos. Like, please look him up. And it's usually super updated, like new features. He has tutorials for that. Yeah, but my advice would be just like look at documentation, samples. Unity has also like great samples that do with you guys. Like, so that, I think.
Excellent. Any like parting thoughts for the developers here? Anything that you want them to know, both for MR or for Resolution? I know you have a new title coming up.
Yeah, we have currently we're also working. We announced that we're working with Wizards of the Coast with D&D new game. We're releasing Special Ops by the end of the year. Yeah, I don't know.
Which is open for people to try, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If
It's
they
an
join
open
the
beta since yesterday, as I mentioned before, so you guys can join that. It's there's a lot of cool things there and cool experimental stuff there. So also give it a bit of like the benefit of the doubt.
Excellent.
No.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for coming on stage, sharing your tips, your insights. I'm sure people found it useful. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. And again, if you have any questions, you can just like ask me like afterwards, or you can like come everywhere. You can just like send me a message. We're always happy to help. We're also recruiting if you guys want to work with us. So yeah, that's it.
Excellent. That's pretty much from us. This feels like a whole new thing. We're going to stay here for any questions, if you have any. We also have a booth where you can try building something yourself with all the tools and the resources that we presented today. You'll be blown away by how fast you can build a multiplayer experience with some of the tools. Collocated multiplayer experience with some lightsabers or some colors. It's pretty mind-blowing. You need to try it. We're going to be on the booth all day today and tomorrow. So drop by. And again, have a look on how to get started, especially if you're in your dev. The resources are available to you there today. The ecosystem has evolved massively. And yeah, we're really excited to see what you guys build. Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, looking forward to see what you create. Thank you.